Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about The Matrix and the recent interview with Lilly Wachowski. So this has been making the rounds on YouTube, and people have been fighting about this on Twitter. So Lilly Wachowski was recently interviewed by Netflix, and in that interview she said that The Matrix was a trans metaphor, was an allegory for transgenderism. And so everyone has been freaking out and fighting about this on Twitter. And the argument is a lot of people believe that this was never the Wachowskis' original intent when they made The Matrix back in 1999, but now this is just something they're retroactively tacking on to the movie, much the same way J.K. Rowling retroactively just came out and said, oh yeah, Dumbledore's gay. He always was gay, even though there was nothing in the books to even remotely indicate that the character was gay. So people are comparing it, saying it's the same as that, and then that's where all the fights are coming from. So people are scrapping back and forth on Twitter. So I've been kind of monitoring all the arguments on Twitter and seeing where they go. So this is not a new theory for The Matrix, that this theme, transgender theme, is in there. This is actually, I think, started out as a fan theory among trans people, but was never officially confirmed until now. So that's the reason why it's blowing up now. But this has been kicking around for a while, and it was a few months ago I was actually reading about this fan theory, and was going to make a video about it then. Because what people are not talking about right now when it comes to this whole trans metaphor thing with The Matrix, there's a very interesting rabbit hole in this story here that no one is talking about, which I'm going to get to in a second. Very interesting. Okay, first I'm going to give my thoughts on the whole idea that the first Matrix is an allegory for transgenderism. So, I don't know, a lot of people who follow my channel know I kind of like, I always call out a lot of political correct nonsense and stuff like that, so my answer might surprise some people. I actually don't think this is retroactive. I think it was always in the movie. And I don't think this is the same case as Dumbledore at all. Because there's actually some evidence to back up this claim in the Matrix film. There's the character Switch that was originally going to be, I believe, I'm not sure if it was, the character was going to be a male in the real world, and then their digital self was going to be a female. There was that was in there, and then there's the whole kind of like dead naming thing with Neo accepting his new name and his new self outside the Matrix, where the agents inside the Matrix want him to conform to the program, and they keep calling him Mr. Anderson, and that's kind of the same as the dead naming thing. So I don't think they're doing this for internet clout, or internet clapbacks or anything like that. I don't think so. I don't think they are doing it for that reason. I don't think this is the same as Dumbledore at all. So now the other thing about The Matrix, I love the first Matrix movie. I've watched that movie countless times, and every time I want to watch The Matrix, it's always the first one. I don't really care for the other two. Like, I never ever watched them. I've seen them only like a couple times, but for me, the first Matrix is such a really nice self-contained movie that when I watch it, I like get everything I want out of that first film. I don't ever feel the need to go on and watch the other ones, because the other ones to me were just like this philosophical mess of babble that just, I don't know, I didn't really care for them. But the first one, I think, is a very deep story, and I'm going to compare it to Dune. Like movies like this or books like that are really deep. They can have more than one theme inside of them. So definitely, I think the transgender theme is in there. So I'm just going to take the Wachowski's word for it that when they say it was there, it's there. It's in there. And I think you can find clues that it's there. I don't think it's really that hard. But the Matrix has a lot of themes in it, and it can have more than one theme. Now, the reason why I really like The Matrix, and the reason why I watch it again and again and again, is because of this. It has a very strong theme of Gnosticism in it. So if anyone doesn't know what Gnostics are or Gnosticism is, the Gnostics were a sect of Christianity that was basically the other Christians tried to snuff them out because they've had very controversial beliefs. I want to explain what they believed. If you've never heard of them, you'll understand how the link to the Matrix right away. So in, I guess, regular Christianity, I know something about because I used to be a Christian. Regular Christianity, believed that depending on which church you went to, you always had to go to church, worship God, and then there would be a priest or a pastor would read scripture to you and explain to you what the meaning of it is and how you have to live your life. They were basically like a conduit for God. And the God in the Bible was the one and only God. Now, the Gnostics believe that the Judeo-Christian God that's talked about in the Bible is actually not the true God, but is a being that thinks it's the true God, and they call it the demiurge. And the reason why the world is so messed up and everything is because this universe that we're living in was created by the demiurge, which was an imperfect being. So the universe we exist in is imperfect. And then the angels and stuff that are servants of the demiurge, they call them archons. And they're the ones that kind of help keep everything in line. So the Gnostics believe the only way to know the true God was through self-knowledge, by seeking knowledge of your own and not going through a teacher or going through a church, but through, and then you would reach the true God that way. And once you did connect with the true God, not the demiurge, you would also connect with your higher self, and then you would have achieved gnosis, self-knowledge, and then you would break the illusion of this false reality we live in. So it's very strong in there. You have it's as clear as a bell that that's in the Matrix, because even the agents, they're kind of like archons that belong to the demiurge. The computer program is like the false reality that was created by this machine AI, and the machine AI is basically the demiurge in that sense. And then Neo, when finally snaps to it and believes that he is the one and he can control the Matrix, he's achieved gnosis at that point, and he can beat Agent Smith. So that is in there, as well as the transgenderism theme. So you can have both of those in there simultaneously. Similar as Dune. Dune has, the theme of the people giving up their power to the Messiah, but there's a lot of other themes in there too, like the environmental stuff and the political stuff and all that. It's got more than one theme, and really good science fiction usually does. Matrix is not, I wouldn't consider it like a shallow work of science fiction by any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty deep, and it's got even deeper stuff in there. There's probably more themes just as that you could pick out of the movie. There's lots. And then so to me it doesn't make any difference, and it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the movie at all. I think it actually makes the film more interesting, because I like it when movies have a lot of these hidden themes, and it's kind of like an onion. You can just keep unraveling all the different layers to it and all the different themes in the movie, similar to a Stanley Kubrick movie. So now we're going to get back to why I think this is not retroly active. It's not tacked on, retroly active. That's what I'm trying to say. Now this story, I'm going to try to summarize the story that I stumbled upon. I can't remember how I stumbled upon the story, but it was a couple months ago. And there's more to it, but I'm going to try to give it the condensed version. And it starts off with Buck Angel. So I don't know if you know who Buck Angel is, but Buck Angel is a woman who transitioned into a man and is very famous in the porn industry. And this is actually the person that Scarlett Johansson was supposed to portray in a film, but then all the activists kicked up a big stink because she wasn't actually trans, and so anyway, the whole movie fell apart. They almost made a movie of Buck Angel starring Scarlett Johansson. So very famous in the porn industry, and then ran a kind of like a BDSM club in Hollywood, along with his partner, Mistress Elsa Strix, who during the time of the Matrix movie, like the first one, and around that time period, was one of the most sought after dominatrix in Hollywood, and apparently had a very long list of very famous clients that would come to this sex club and go into her, pay big bucks to go with her in her dungeon, and she would do all kinds of things to them to dominate them and stuff like that. So the story goes, one night she's in her dungeon, and Buck Angel gets a call from her while she's working in her dungeon, and she says, "You're not gonna believe who I've got in my dungeon tonight." And so Ask, well, who? It's that Matrix guy, the guy who just did the Matrix. And that person would later turn out to be Lana Wachowski. So at the time, Lana hadn't transitioned yet, and part of the game that they would play, I guess, Lana and the Mistress, was Lana would dress up as a woman, and it was kind of like a forced thing. I don't exactly know the whole fetish or whatever it was, but that's basically what would happen in the dungeon. Is Mistress Strix would make him, he was a him at the time, dress up as a woman. And so this carried on, and eventually it moved to Mistress Strix's house, where her and Buck Angel lived, because she had a dungeon there too. So Lana Wachowski would start going there, and things like that, and get dominated by Mistress Strix. So what eventually happened is Mistress Strix and Lana Wachowski, they became a couple, and then Lana Wachowski transitioned. And now all this was going on right around just after the first Matrix movie, but before the other two sequels were made. All this relationship started. And they were in a full relationship during the making of the Matrix 2 and 3. Because there was a story going around that the reason why the second and third Matrix movies weren't as good is because Lana Wachowski was too heavily influenced by her mistress, and then turned out to be partner, Mistress Strix. Had too much influence on the film. And now that's a condensed version of this story. I'm trying to condense it as much as I could. So it's a very deep rabbit hole. So that's why I don't think this is retroactively tacked on, because all this was going on right around the Matrix movies, just after the first one was made, but before 2 and 3 were made. So Lana Wachowski just didn't develop that idea, the transition into a woman, like overnight. This was something that was probably in her mind for quite a while, and that's probably why that stuff is snuck into the Matrix, or put into the first Matrix movie as an allegory. On top of that, I think if you looked hard and you kind of peeled it back, you would probably find the Matrix has themes of the transgenderism theme in it, and then the Gnostic theme that I talked about, but they probably have like a BDSM theme in there too, with all the leather and dark stuff and all that, right? That's probably in there as well. So this is a part of the story, this is a rabbit hole in the story that no one is talking about when it comes to this recent news. No one's talking about this. It's a very, very interesting story. And I gave you the condensed version. I might actually I was actually going to do a video on it, but I might actually go back to that idea and do a more expanded video on that to give more details into that whole situation with Lana Wachowski and her mistress, who I think is now her wife. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.